Recording in progress.
Afternoon, everyone. We're going to call the Rules and Appointment Committee meeting for March the 1st to order at this time. Ms. Carrillo, if you will please call the roll.
Banowski?
Here.
Aaron?
Here.
Mackey?
Here.
We have a quorum.
Our next order of business is the approval of the minutes. So moved. There's a second. Any changes or anything that we need to amend to the minutes? If not, call the roll, please.
Malinowski?
Yes.
Barron?
Yes?
Mackey?
Yes.
Motion approved.
Our next order of business is the adoption of the agenda. Did hear from the clerk's office that we need to amend our agenda to add an item D for the Board of Assessments and Appeal. They have one vacancy for us to interview Cynthia Blair. Any other changes from the clerk's office?
No, ma'am.
Hearing the amendment to our agenda. Yes, sir.
That's why we have this other item tossed in front of us here. Can we get how many vacancies and how many applicants and all the info that's usually in front of us on the, are there any specific qualifications for that particular board?
We do have one vacancy and two applicants. One of those applicants is going to can interview today. The next one will be for the next roll of interviews.
It's just an interview we're adding, not an appointment.
It's just an interview, yes.
All right, thank you.
Given that adding item D to our agenda, I'll entertain a motion at this time. So moved. If there's not any further discussion.
Wait a minute, this is for the agenda, right?
Correct.
All right. I would also like to make sure, because it is not on here at all, and when it's not on here, that's when things get left behind. It's not on here for discussion or for information. We've been working with the council rules for a very, very long period of time. And I'd like to make sure that it's on the next agenda, whether we're taking action or not, just so that we don't forget that the rules are part of what we're supposed to be looking into for ultimate forwarding to the council.
That's noted, Mr. Malinowski, and I did inform the clerk that we would leave that off because at this moment I think that we've gotten everything caught up to date that we had pending.
I would think like other like other committees, when we have it, it would be as an item for information or discussion. It doesn't have to be an action item, but it still should be listed here.
Noted. Thank you. So any further discussion? If not, Ms. Corella, please call for the vote.
Malinowski,
Yes.
Mackey,
Yes.
Barron.
Yes.
Motion approved to approve the agenda as amended.
Our next order of business is to conduct our interviews. We traditionally do these by going into executive session to interview those individuals that are present with us. We do, just for information's sake, we will be interviewing the Board of Zoning and Appeals. There are 2 vacancies. We have Samuel Chuck Knowles. Item B, the Hospitality Tax Committee, there are 3 vacancies. And we will be interviewing Christopher Ziegler. Item C, Transportation Penny Advisory Committee. We will only be interviewing 1 person, which is Rebecca Denise. And then item D, the Board and Assessment. I don't think it's right. The Board and Assessment and Appeals, Ms. Cynthia Blair will take up those items. I'll entertain a motion to go into executive session to conduct our interviews.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
Just for clarification, so you're saying for item 4C, we're only interviewing 1 person?
Correct.
That's number 1? Okay.
That is correct.
Can we make note of that in the agenda?
Yes, so Mr. Martin is wanting to wait. He's wanting to wait until he gets some additional information. And that's something that we can discuss at a little bit later once we go into executive session, how we want to move forward with handling that situation.
I move to go into executive session for interviews for A, B, C, and D.
Any discussion? If not, Rilla, please.
Malinowski,
Yes.
Mackey,
Yes.
Barron.
Yes.
Motion approved to enter into executive session.
Wait till they've been
Wait.
live.
Sorry.
Move to come out of executive session.
Second?
Ms. Carrillo, you call the roll for coming out of executive session?
Malinowski,
Yes.
Barron,
Yes,
Mackey.
Yes.
Motion approved to come out of executive session.
we are coming out of executive session. We did not take any action. However, we went into executive session to conduct interviews for boards and commissions for Richland County. At this time, our next order, well, before we move forward with that, I think that I'd like to have a little discussion about how the committee would like to move forward with the applicants who did not appear today before us. We do have one applicant that we had no response, and then another applicant wanting to get further information. Yes, Mr. Malinowski.
Madam Chair, if I could get additional info, why was Mr. Martin not showing up today? You said he wanted to get additional info?
Yeah, he had stated that he wanted to talk to someone on the board or the chair of the board to give more information about that board. And I believe that he has been in contact with you about that.
All he said is that he'd like to be on the board, that was it.
So he requested to get the information from one of the board members or any of the board members so that he can make his final decision. Once we were not able to share that information, he decided to withhold until he can contact someone on the board. He expressed that he wanted to get more information about how the board serves and what they do and what will be other general questions.
I don't know if this is the proper time for me to discuss anything about him or not. No. I mean, it's not anything as far as that would be executive session item. It's just a matter of that his application's here. The application is part of the agenda, which is public information. Correct, Mr. Attorney?
Yes, his application is public.
Right, and if you were to look at, I'm not turning to it, I'm just gonna, what I recall is that one of his statements in there was that he wanted to see how he could better get things done in Northwest Richland County. And when he maybe made that statement to me when I saw him at a community meeting, I said, it's not about Northwest Richland County, it's the entire county that you have to be concerned with. And hands are tied based on what the referendum said. We can only devote money to what was on that referendum. So that may be where he's trying to clarify that information. I don't know.
Well, my challenge with this particular applicant is that this applicant made application on their own merit. And so if that is the case, it would appear that they would have done their homework prior to making an application. So now that we have an interview before you, then we have to go back and hold our process up for something they didn't do ahead of time. I don't support at all moving forward with this interview and moving this person forward to re-interview them at all. But this is.
Was he actually scheduled for a time for the interview that he initially stated? No, he was not. I'm just wondering why he's on here.
After the agenda was disseminated, he withdrew. He requested to wait until he gets his questions answered. But the agenda was already distributed.
So he did consent to come in initially. If his name is on the agenda.
He continued to ask to be able to get in touch with someone on the board.
Then I'm thinking that we need to treat this as a withdrawal of the application, if that's the case. He was asked to set up a time for an interview, and he said, no, I don't want to. Even though he wants to get additional information, I think we need to withdraw him until such a time as he says, I'm ready to move forward. We just can't keep the position open indefinitely.
I agree.
So that's what I would think we need to do.
And so while we're speaking of that, we we have a no response. In the past, we have, when we had individuals who were sick, things of that nature, there was grace given there. But do we know how did we try to communicate or to contact Mr. Knowles?
By calls. In all fairness to these applicants, the call was not established until Thursday, so they really haven't had enough time to be able to decide. So for A or B reason, they did not respond. For Mr. Knowles, there was a phone tag. They kept on calling back, and we have not received, if I'm not mistaken. Right.
When you say you kept calling back, do we have a record of about how many calls were made and or messages left? Over a period of days, like you said, Thursday, Friday, Monday?
We tried to reach out to him 3 times.
On different days?
On Thursday.
All on Thursday?
And after he calls back to the office, and he had not called back.
Okay, so messages were left each time?
Yes.
And so is there, I guess why did we wait till Thursday to make appointments for interviews to take place now on Tuesday?
Because that's when we received approval to add them to the agenda.
So that's when I approved the last agenda, because there were some discrepancies in the agenda. There were some discrepancies in the agenda. However, I do want to state that the discrepancies that we were discussing had nothing to do with interviews. So just moving forward, I think that in fairness to the applicants that we're asking to come before us, we need to give them enough time to be able to respond to us and for them to make plans and schedule to be here with us. I just think it's unfair for us to call them on a Thursday and say, hey, come on Tuesday, and the majority of these people are working. So let's just keep that in mind. So I guess with Mr. Knowles, perhaps we continue to show a little grace there and offer him another interview. Do we need to take any action as far as Mr. Martin, which is item C2? Mr. Wright.
I think that if he's been deemed to have removing his application, I think that's all this really needs to be done.
Yes, Mr. Malinowski.
Hey, Madam Chair. Well, from what I'm hearing, if the initial contact to set up a scheduled interview wasn't until Thursday, and Mr. Martin said, I'd like to speak with somebody on the board to get more information about this committee, and it only gave him Friday and Monday, and maybe he hasn't been able to contact somebody. Maybe his job precluded him from making calls. I don't know. So if our next meeting is the 15th, I would say that we give each of those individuals until the 15th to schedule the interview. And if at that point, if when you try to schedule it, you get the answer, well, I haven't gotten in touch with somebody, say, well, you need to know by, whatever the date the agenda is going to be produced. And if we don't hear from you, we're going to put your application in the withdrawal pile.
Jackie?
All right, we discussed a lot of different things. I do think we need a process. The withdrawal piece, I still just have a concern on overall. I think unless someone tells us they want to necessarily withdraw, then I think they can continue to sit here until their application expires in 1 year. But that doesn't stop us from appointing folks that did show up for their interviews.
I agree with you on that. I'll reiterate it again. This person made application, and now they need additional information. Moving forward.
Madam Chair, can I just clarify one thing?
Yeah.
Initially, we went into executive session. I want to make it clear that we had initially stated to interview a certain number of folks, but just to be clear, we did not interview 4A. I just wanted to be clear, because I think we said initially we were going in, we thought we were going to. I just want everyone to know we did not interview 4A
Thank
today.
you for that clarification.
Yeah, or for C number 2.
We didn't state that one. Our next order of business is the appointments. I did have a couple of questions about the appointments specifically because I tried to pull my old meeting notes and agendas, and I don't know about anybody else on the committee. Maybe the clerk can help me, you guys can help me, but these interview dates didn't appear to line up for me. The interview dates that were listed, because I was trying to go back and specifically find agenda packets making connection with what you put in here, and I was unable to do so, and just connecting. So are these dates the actual dates that we interviewed these people? Because it would appear that we were very busy on the 7th. Mr. Malinowski?
That's the question that I also had, but it was clarified by Ms. Only before the meeting for me. If you look at it, some of these people applied for more than one committee. And so we interviewed that one person on the 7th, and I give Ms. Patman, for example, she's listed 1, 2, 3, 4, 3 times anyway that I see here right now in front of me. So that was only one interview, even though, oh, there's another one. 4, even though she's listed 4 times, it was really just one interview. So it is accurate that way, because I questioned it also.
Okay. I was digging through boxes trying to get my life together, and I was not successful. So I was almost ready to just put a halt here. But so let's go ahead, and if we won't, these won't go to the agenda tonight, but they will go to the agenda for our next meeting. So if we are ready, I'll of course entertain any motions, and we'll start with item A, which is accommodations tax. There's 2 vacancies here, and we have 2 applicants. Of course, Ms. Patman is, and I could not recall what her number 1 choice was when we interviewed her.
I've got it here for you. Ready? Number 1 was Music Festival. Number 2, Hospital Board. Number 3, Township. Number 4, Board of Zoning Appeals. She applied for 10 committees overall. We got the top 4.
Okay. All right. So given that, for 5A, are there any recommendations?
Yes, my question, Madam Chair, if I may, would be, it says we've got 7 vacancies, and 1, 2, there's only 2 applicants in front of us, correct?
Right.
But then it also says that out of the 7, and it gives these specifics, 2 lodging, 3 hospitality, 1 cultural, and 1 at large. I'm not sure that either of these fills anything except the at-large position. Is that correct? Right? Okay.
Given that, we could make 1 appointment of the 7.
Correct. Fill the at-large seat.
Correct. Yes, sir. Is there a motion for either one of them? I think Mr. Williams, he made applications to several committees as well. if I'm not mistaken.
Sitting right up. He applied for the hospital board and the aid tax. Were those the only two for him?
Correct, yes, sir. Yes, sir.
I don't believe we got from him his choices, first or second. I do know that the notes I had, of course, he is a minister and he's the Reverend Williams, but that he indicated in his application great concern for the health and well-being of members of our community. And he, in his interview, I know he said that he has ideas or concepts that would be beneficial as an outsider to this particular board, and that he almost lives in the hospital and sees the other side of care based on his position as a minister. That's about what I can offer for him.
Why don't we do this, because our time is winding down, and we've got about 4 minutes, and we're kind of slow on the draw of appointments. So I think that at this point, if it's proper, we can adjourn a few minutes early and take up these items at our next meeting and be prepared to make appointments for these vacancies then.
I guess I would say we revisited 5A, but are there any others that we would like to appoint tonight? If there, I understand maybe no one wanted to make a motion on 5A, but is there any consideration of any others?
And I'm absolutely open to that.
Okay.
If there are any, we'll take them one all together here. If there are any committees between 5A and F that we would like to make a recommendation to council.
For 5D, make a motion to appoint Christopher Ziegler.
I'll second that. Any discussion for appointment of 5D1, Christopher Ziegler? Not. Ms. Carrillo, will you call for the vote?
Malinowski,
Yes.
Barron,
Yes.
Mackey.
Yes.
Motion approved.
Are there any additional committees that we're prepared at this time to make a recommendation for between 5A and F?
Yes, Madam Chair.
Recognize Ms. Mack.
Thank you. For 5E, I'd like to make a motion that we appoint number 5, William Garland.
I'd like to make a friendly amendment and add Mr. Williams to that, if I may. You have to accept it.
On amend it.
Sorry, you waiting on me. What was your, which one did you say?
Well, Mr. Malinowski also, he's got one as well.
Okay.
My friendly amendment was, to accept Mr. Williams and add to your, Mr. Garland.
Okay, no, I would like to keep them separate then.
Okay. We can vote on them separately. And we do have two vacancies.
Yeah.
And so we'll vote on them separately. Rilla?
Sorry. Do we have a second?
No, no one seconded yet.
1 second?
No.
I'll second it.
Okay. And that would be, I'm sorry, can I clarify this, Chairman? They will be to accept to nominate Mr. Garland?
Correct.
All right. Malinowski?
No.
Barron?
Yes.
Mackey?
Yes.
Motion approved.
And while we're here, we are over time. While we're here, if there is any additional motions for item 5E, I'll accept them at this time.
Because we're over time, I'm not gonna make a motion. I'll make a motion to adjourn and we take this up next time.
Second.
Ms. Carilla, please call the roll for adjournment.
Malinowski?
Yes.
Barron?
Yes,
Mackey?
Yes.
Motion approved to adjourn.
thank you.